So this week marks exactly 1 year that we launched our first short-term rental. How did we do? Well, I'll get to that juicy stuff, but first I want to talk to you about why we bought our first short-term rental, because it's important. If you don't have a strong why, it's just not worth doing. And because I want to be rich just isn't good enough. So I've been a corporate professional for about 30 years now, and I love what I do, but I've been thinking, what's next? What do I want to do for the rest of my life? Is there something that I can start doing right now that I can continue doing for decades and not necessarily retire per se? That thinking process is what got me to start investing in real estate a few years ago, to document my learnings on a YouTube channel that I started, and to help immigrants and their families grow their wealth through real estate. Now, I'm happy to say that I'm a partner in over 600 apartment units. I also started a YouTube channel about 6 months ago, which is going well. And my wife and I also bought a short-term rental about a year ago. Okay, so let's focus on the short-term rental we bought. It's a 3-bedroom, 3.5 bath log cabin located right on Lake Norman, which is about an hour north of Charlotte, North Carolina. The Lake Norman area is a big vacation destination for that entire region, so that's what really drew us to that area. Plus, it's only about a 6-hour drive from our house, so it isn't that far to go visit on the weekends. So we started looking, and a friend of mine sent me a listing to a log cabin that we really liked. It was cozy, it was secluded, and it had lake access. It had its own dock, which was really cool. So our goal, first and foremost, with this short-term rental was for it to be an investment property, much more so than a property that we're going to vacation at all the time. Yes, we do vacation there during the slow times, but guests usually take priority. All right, so let's talk about the numbers and how we bought this property. Now, we closed on this property in October of 2022, and we paid $680,000 for it. We put 10% down, so we ended up financing $612,000. So around that time, the interest rates had already started going up, so we ended up getting a rate of 6.625. So that means our mortgage plus our taxes plus our insurance ends up being about $4,500 a month. Plus you add in the expenses for electricity and internet. We also have an 120-pound propane gas tank that we refill every so often. And we also have deliveries of firewood that come in for guests to use. So all in all, it's about an extra $500 of expenses that we add to that $4,500. So in total, it's about $5,000 of expenses a month. And if you analyze that expense, our expenses end up being about $60,000 a year. So this first year, we've spent $60,000 in expenses. As I mentioned, we closed on it in October of 2022, and we did a bunch of work to this property. Now, we didn't do any major renovations, but a lot of minor stuff. And after that, we listed it in December of 2022 on Airbnb and VRBO. So what did we do to it? We cleaned, we painted, we designed, we furnished, all of that with our own hands. Let me show you some before and after pictures here. So this is the outside of the cabin. We loved the log cabin feel of it. We thought it was beautiful. On the inside, I'm going to show you some pictures that were from the MLS prior to buying it, and then what we did to it. With this living room, we kept it pretty much the same. We just changed out the furniture, obviously some different artwork, gave it more of a contemporary kind of modern feel. We put the oars on the wall to give it sort of a taste of the lake, which is a big deal here. For the kitchen, again, kept it pretty simple. We just had some of the basics here that you would need as a guest in the cabin. The bedrooms, we kept pretty much the same. We wanted to have this wood shine because that's really, very indicative of a log cabin. But we wanted it to have some modern kind of contemporary feel to it as well. So we also added the 2 pendant lights that are sitting above the nightstand to give some light to each side of the bed. And those little remotes sitting on the nightstand are controls for the light. So we liked how that turned out as well. The other bedroom upstairs was used as an office before. We made it back into a bedroom, adding a day bed there and the pendant lights as well, same approach. And we had a little desk on the left that we liked as well, that people could work at if they wanted to. The porch we really liked a lot. Beautiful, great view. It was screened in so it'd keep all the bugs out. So that was a very attractive thing about the spot. Downstairs, we had this living area that they had used, and we really wanted to make this a showpiece. So we commissioned the custom wallpaper to be used here, and it turned out really nice. This is an image that was created into wallpaper, so it's not wallpaper you could find anywhere. The accent walls we really liked, and just the overall vibe we really enjoyed here. The kitchen downstairs, this is a unique house because it has a kitchen both upstairs and downstairs. The downstairs kitchen we kept pretty simple, just the basics that you would need if you were in a home that you wanted to rent, and just some of the nods again to the lake above the cabinets. The dining area we kept pretty much the same. We just obviously had different style furniture, added an accent wall, paint, and the heater at the back is great. We really love that little piece. It's excellent. The bedroom downstairs we used as sort of a master downstairs. So we put a king bed and pendant lights there again, and we put wallpaper on one of the walls to give it a nice feel to it that we really liked. Looking at the bathroom downstairs, we just added one of the accent walls again in paint and such. So really overall the design we really liked. Now we did not design this property. We hired a designer to help us do it because either my wife and I are very good designers, so we really needed a professional, and we think they did a great job. If you go to the outside and the back stayed pretty much the same. We got Adirondack chairs, made sure we had a fire pit there. We had a little oval chair there made of wood, which we really liked, and a table with chairs that you could have outdoor dinner, for example, with an umbrella. It's just a really nice spot to relax. And then we also had this hammock there that we put between those two trees there. So overall, this spot is really secluded and very relaxing, and just very enjoyable. And then further down, you can see the dock. This is what connects us to Lake Norman. We love this dock because this is where you can basically launch off on your adventures into the lake. And then this is the overall view from the air, and you can see the home and the table there in the backyard, and then the dock. Overall, we think this is a great property and a great place for stays. So let me tell you, this was not easy. In fact, it was harder than I expected. I'd never done one, so I had no frame of reference from before. And the mountain of cardboard that we had in our driveway, I'd never seen that in a house before. So, just things to learn. So what are some of the stats after the first year? So for the very first year, we hosted 60 groups, which was made up of about 310 guests that stayed with us. And the bookings were about 50-50 between Airbnb and VRBO. So they were both very important in us maximizing our revenue. We had 52 reviews during that time, and I'm happy to say that 50 of those 52 were 5-star reviews, and we had 2 4-star reviews. One of them was because the person didn't like the weather that weekend, and they were disappointed that it wasn't nice weather, so we got a 4-star review. And the other one was because they didn't think the internet was fast enough. And we tried to be very clear in our description, because it's a log cabin that's kind of remote, that the internet wasn't exactly the fastest. But since then, we've made it even clearer. Now let's dive into the numbers and start with the revenue. Now, this is sensitive information I'm putting out there on YouTube. So if you wouldn't mind just hitting the like button and let YouTube know that this is valuable content for others to watch, I'd appreciate it. So our revenue the first year was $74,200 during that first 12-month period. Now, how does that compare to other properties in the area? Through my dynamic pricing software called Price Labs, they have a market dashboard that gives you kind of market statistics. And I pulled the average revenue for properties that are 3 bedrooms, that have no hot tub and no pool, just so we can compare apples to apples. And the average revenue for those properties in this area was $49,000. So we beat that average by 50%, which I'm really happy about. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that $74,200 in revenue includes cleaning fees, and those fees get passed on to the guest, but they're counted in that revenue number. And our cleanings were about $10,000 in total. So if you take $74,200, you subtract about $10,000 of cleaning fees, and you subtract about $60,000 in expenses, I end up with about a $4,000 profit. Now, we're actually very happy with that. And you would think, well, that's not a whole lot of money for the amount of work that you put in. That's true, but we had a longer vision with this. We wanted this property to be the one that we learned from. So in my mind, this was almost like buying a college education on short-term rentals. And I actually ended up covering all the costs, which is great, and made a little bit extra. But that doesn't mean we're just going to sit around and do the same thing next year. We have plans right now to improve for the next 12 months. What are those plans? Well, there's 3 things that we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to increase the amenities. So we realize that our property, even though it has a dock, we don't have kayaks or things that people can do while they're at the property. And we think by adding some of these amenities, we could potentially make it a lot more attractive to stay at. I also did some analysis in this area and found that 3-bedroom properties that had a hot tub versus those that did not have a hot tub made $30,000 more in revenue a year. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean the hot tub itself is driving that $30,000. It could be that hot tubs are typically accompanied by pools or other things, but the indications are that you can make significantly more money with a hot tub. So we placed an order for a hot tub last week, and it should be delivered in about 4 or 5 weeks or so. We're also going to buy some kayaks and some stand-up paddle boards in the spring to have something to do on the lake, which we think is going to be pretty cool too. So the second thing we're going to do is that eventually we want to be able to refinance the property. As I mentioned before, the interest rate that we got was 6.625, which is a bit high, but we're hoping that maybe in a year or 2 or 3, the interest rates are going to be down to a lower level. Well, it makes sense to refinance. But I'm pretty sure that that's not going to happen in the next 12 to 24 months, which is okay. And the third thing we want to do is we want to buy another property. We learned so much from this process that we're so much smarter now about how to do this that we think we can do much better with our next one. Now, I'm very happy with the fact that we made $4,000 in profit over the last year because of the learning that we had. And this was all during all the news about Airbnb bust and short-term rentals are in trouble and this and that. We did really well. And I think there is space for people that know how to do this well to perform well, regardless of what's going on in the market. Now, what are some of the lessons that we learned from this process? Well, first of all, is that you don't know what you don't know. You know, we were certainly nervous buying this property, but we approached this as this being a learning experience for us, much more so than necessarily maximizing our profit. And it worked out really well in that regard. We made a lot of mistakes, big and small. For example, I spent too much on decorating and little extras and knickknacks that I really don't think made much of a difference. It was also very challenging at the beginning to get it all set up. But once it was set up, it's pretty easy to manage, even with my full-time job. I hope this video provided you some context, another data point maybe, to think about when you're looking at potentially getting your own short-term rental. Yeah, it was scary at first. There were a lot of things we didn't know, but 12 months later, I feel like I have a PhD now compared to what I did a year ago, and it was well worth it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching the Immigrant Wealth channel.